Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mark's Side of the Ring. Episode 7, I make it, which is nice considering that we were just kind of doing it for the crack. I think seven's the start of, hopefully, the start of a really good run. But yeah, thank you to everyone for joining us here at Mark's Side of the Ring. Unfortunately, Peter can't be with us today. He's a bit unwell. But other than Peter, we do have the usual suspects with us. So we've got Robbie, David, and Kev. How are we doing, guys?
Doing good. Yeah.
All good.
Oh, good. Oh, good. It feels like ages. I don't know if was there possibly like, have we potentially? I suppose we should do it on a Sunday, isn't it? I'm all the pot because I'm not at work and the clocks have gone back and it's Halloween tomorrow and I'm totally the pot. So it feels like ages since we've done one of these. But you know, it's always nice to get together and chat a bit of wrestling. We've got some good stuff coming up today. Obviously, as always, my sources have been out there tracking down Roman Reigns. You'll be surprised where he's turned up this week. We'll predict, obviously, Wrestle Profit rolls on, and we'll predict our results for Crown Jewel. And then I believe, is it controversial wrestling opinions? Is that what we're doing?
It is indeed, yeah. Yeah.
That sounds good to me. So what we'll do is, because obviously our breaking news correspondent is not here, so I'm going to have to kind of take up the mantle once again and do a little bit of the wrestling news. So here we go. WWE's global dominance continues unabated, with news confirmed that 2024 will see the market leaders host Bash in Berlin, their first major PLE from Germany. With Bash in Berlin scheduled for August the 31st, close proximity to AEW All In from Wembley Stadium is hard to ignore, with many mainland European wrestling fans left with a tough choice this summer. John Cena has been confirmed to wrestle his first match in Saudi Arabia since 2018, with the leader of the C Nation squaring off with Solo Sikoa at WWE Crown Jewel this weekend. Very probably the biggest match in Little Uso's career, the Markside boys will predict this and the rest of the card for this weekend's big show later on Markside of the Ring. And finally, much discussion about one of the world's greatest wrestlers continues to mount as Will Ospreay's contract with New Japan is set to expire in February 2024, with WWE, AEW and TNA all interested in Ospreay's services. 2024 is already setting up to be as interesting and entertaining as 2023. And I feel that's a good place to start. And again, because I'm all discombobulated and I don't know what day it is and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, we usually do this podcast on a Sunday when we can. Sometimes we need to move things about like we have this week. The last time we'd met, had it been announced that Impact Wrestling are kind of rebranding and going back to TNA, was that something we talked about?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Cool. So obviously, I, for me, as far as I'm concerned, like they're saying January, but I'm just doing it now and I'm just throwing it in there. But I think it's really interesting. Obviously, in that time since since we last spoke, Impact have been on a tour of the UK, which it's their first tour for 8 years. Sounds like it's gone really well as well. I was disappointed I couldn't get up to Walker to see the Newcastle Turning Point event that Will Ospreay was wrestling at, and it was kind of, for people who live in the Northeast, I know a lot of people who watch do. The idea of Will Ospreay wrestling in Walker just blew my mind a little bit in terms of his stature and where he is and stuff at the moment. He probably is, and he's not even a free agent yet, but he probably is the biggest free agent in wrestling, just with the conversations that are going on. I mean, David, what do you think about Will Ospreay? I know he's come up quite a few times in our chats here on Mark's Side of the Ring. Do you think that he is kind of worth all the hype that he's given at the moment?
Most definitely. He is, from what he was, he's grown his brand, and he's just he's grown it be one of the best in the world, or the best in the world.
I mean, I know you've got to a lot more kind of indie events than I have over the years. Have you seen him live previously before kind of the last few years?
Not before All In. It's Wembley. I've never seen him live, but I've seen videos of him, and some of his Wrestle Kingdom matches are just great. Fantastic.
It's funny you talk about All In, because it's like, I think that's probably why it feels, and this is no disrespect to TNA or the venue they're at Walker or anything like that, but it just feels like when the last time he was over in the UK, he's been at Wembley Stadium in front of, disputedly the biggest wrestling crowd of all time. It just feels crazy to think that he was on our doorstep like that, and I'm really disappointed that I couldn't get down. I know he kind of released a statement afterwards. He's kind of basically talking about how much he's enjoyed his time in TNA, and that they are very much an option when his contract expires in February. I guess there's 2 points to come from that, and I'll start with you, Kev. Like, how likely do you think it is? Do you think that there is a chance that TNA nab him, or do you think it is more likely to be one of the big two?
I think obviously it's about him being a big fish in a little pond, staying in TNA, because he could be like the main guy in TNA. I know, watching interviews of Will Ospreay before, on a sign for WWE because he says he likes to go home for Christmas. He likes to be with WWE, like Raws on Christmas Day, work Christmas Day and stuff. So I know before that's why he was put off going to WWE, because of the work schedule. So whether schedule or not, but I don't know. I think he is going through a bit of a renaissance at the minute, so I think he'd be well stayed. See how it goes, to be honest.
I mean, it's really interesting, and that kind of leads to like the second part of what I was thinking. That you're absolutely right, and I don't think it's just because they're changing the name back. I feel like this has been on the boil for a few months, and that we're seeing them put on these really great events and these great wrestlers coming in and all this sort of stuff, and it's built to this point where all of a sudden it's like people who maybe lapsed to TNA and people who maybe haven't been watching during the Impact Wrestling era, all of a sudden are interested. All of a sudden, people are kind of looking in that direction again. And it makes you think, doesn't it, Robbie? Like, if Will Ospreay decided to sign, could he potentially, become the figurehead of this company, kind of the guy, as it were, as this renaissance happens, and we kind of watch the company rise. So then, hopefully, there's 3 major wrestling companies in North America. That would be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, if TNA sign Ospreay, then they're going to get bigger crowds. He would be essentially the modern day AJ Styles. Where the old TNA built it around him. And I definitely think Ospreay went to Impact now. They could then maybe start looking at bigger venues. Because at the minute they're in the smaller venues, but they know that they're not going to sell all these tickets to these big, massive venues. So they're like, right, we know where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just go for the small ones and work the way up. And I think because of that, they've kind of gone under the radar a bit. So no one's really been talking about Impact until recently. And then especially when Ospreay comes out and says, what is TNA? They're in with a shot.
Mm-hmm. People
are going to start looking at them again.
It's a huge shot in the arm, especially considering, like you say, the stuff he's done in Japan is amazing. He's had some really high-profile matches in AEW this year. For someone with his stature to come out and be like, I'm having a hell of a time, and yeah, these guys could be an option, And I mean, the schedule for him, I think, would be great. And it's funny, like, these are the kinds of things that when WWE were the only company in town, they could be like, well, tough shit, we'll work every Christmas and you'll like it. Whereas now, now that AEW is around, now that even the NWA, I think the NWA is kind of in recent years kind of mounted a bit of a comeback as well. There's much more options for wrestlers out there. So someone like a Will Ospreay is suddenly able to kind of be like, right, well, you come to me, tell me what's on the table. And I think that's going to be, I think that's going to be great for him. Obviously, in terms of the matches he's had in AEW, which, again, I've said a few times, there's a couple of them we'll certainly be talking about kind of in a couple of months' time when we're talking about matches at the end of the year. Do you think there's a likely, if we were to say take TNA out of the equation for a moment, which I think we're only doing that for a moment because he said himself it's an option, do you think it's more likely that he goes with AEW, that he already has somewhat of a working relationship with, or do we think he takes his chances and he potentially signs with WWE?
I'd like to see him take his chance at WWE. We've seen him in AEW. Not that he's ever put on a bad match, because he hasn't. But there's, there was a couple of years ago a bit of rivalry on Twitter with him and Rollins.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that play out. I do think Ospreay's a better wrestler than Seth Rollins, but I'd still want to see the match.
They could do that.
It's it's
Ricochet as well. The
Yeah.
Osprey Ricochet match. I mean, that was so divided. People loved it or they hated it. Do that again as well. So that would be good to see.
Do you think he'd be kind of like, because I think the criticism that WWE gets sometimes is it's of like the WWE style, and for me, like, I've got no issue with it. Like, yes, watching an AEW show in ring product is very different to WWE, but I like both for different reasons. Do you think that Ospreay would be restricted by that? Do you think if he was working a WWE style, for lack of a better way of putting it, do you think that's something that would hamper him in terms of the quality of the matches that he's having?
Well, I think about before. I think it was on a Cultaholic podcast, and he was really like how NXT. Like, I think when Danny Burch was doing it, how they're telling Danny Burch what to do and stuff. So I think that'll be an issue for him. Be told what to do, and I mean, he'll not go to the performance center. I can guarantee that he'll not want to do that at all. Be his way, and I think they'll have to pander to him a bit.
Well, he holds the power now, doesn't he? It's a case of these companies want his signature, not Will Ospreay wants to wrestle for WWE, AEW, TNA. He's kind of got that choice because they're all going to offer him contracts. They'd be stupid not to. And then it'd be him, right? Well, I'll do this one, but I want to change this and this and change that. Then yeah.
And to be fair, like, I don't know kind of what the status is of his relationship with New Japan, but there's nothing to say that they don't come in with a really good offer. And he thinks, actually, you know what? I get to wrestle elsewhere. I get to do this, that, and the other, and I can stay with these guys. And he might take that offer too. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll be an interesting 2024. I think, just from that alone. I know, thinking about TNA, people saying that they've offered CM Punk a contract, but the money he was wanting was astronomical, and all of this kind of stuff. It's just I've always been a fan of TNA, and I'm one of the many that kind of lapsed. So I'm really kind of rooting for them to kind of get back out there, and I'm really interested to see how it goes for me. And I'm a massive AEW fan. Part of me kind of wants to see Ospreay go to TNA just to kind of see what he would do there, and just to kind of see, how he would be involved in any kind of renaissance that the company's having. I think that'd be really interesting television.
Yeah, definitely.
Personal point of view, I'd want to see him as WWE champion, to like the WWE champion. No, Drew McIntyre was the first British, but that you see an English WWE champion, that would be really good as well. But that's just that's what
I'd totally.
And
if anyone's got a chance to do that, it's him. Absolutely. So one of the other things that kind of came up, sort of looking at kind of the wrestling news and stuff, was about this event in Berlin. So Bash in Berlin, and we were talking about it just before we kind of went on air as well. This is going to be the first kind of premium live event coming out of, certainly out of Germany, if not coming out of mainland Europe, full stop. I know they've done live events. I know they've done like Raw and SmackDowns kind of across Europe. I can't think of them doing a major pay-per-view, as I prefer to call them, like in mainland Europe. So it is a big deal. I mean, David, why do you think they've chosen Germany? I mean, I know, to be fair, I know that WCW did a lot of touring in Germany back in the day, and it was a bit of a hotbed for them.
They're just building their fan base more and more, aren't they? They're just putting their noses in the right places.
Yeah. And this is almost like, I feel like when Triple H was in NXT and they talked about doing NXT Europe and like all this stuff about building up and this, that, and the other, and that's not happened, but it's almost like that's happening on the main roster, that all of a sudden it makes sense because the World Wrestling Entertainment, it's in the name. So, for them to be doing events in London and events in Puerto Rico and Montreal and Germany and Australia, and like that's fantastic, because again, you're going to get these really rabid crowds that, I imagine that German crowd's going to be absolutely insane.
Could also be because Gunther.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I reckon they'll do the heavyweight title on him. I could see them put on him. having the IC title for so
Yeah.
long and putting a title on him in Korean, but I didn't understand about the whole like in Germany, technically his home country, like
Yeah.
put Imperium, especially for Seth Rollins as well, and Gunther. That would be if he's still champion, then that would be just an amazing match.
Yeah, and to be fair, that ties in with this idea that they do of like kind of highlighting something like in Puerto Rico it was like Damian Priest and Bad Bunny and Zelina Vega, and in Montreal it was Sammy, and it's presumably going to be Rhea Ripley when we get to Elimination Chamber. So that would tie in really nicely, like you say. Yes, he is from Austria. I'd be quite interested to know how many of the WWE big brass actually know that. Probably just presume he's German, but but I do think, yeah, I totally agree. I think it would be a real moment, and I mean, good. I mean, to be fair, we're sidestepping a little bit, but good for Gunther. Do you know what I mean? Like after I'm watching him kind of on the British wrestling scene as Walter and coming into NXT, and people saying he was too big and all this, that, and the other, and then just kind of what he's made of himself and what he's become. Like absolute respect to him because he's probably one of, if not the best wrestler on the WWE roster right now. Like he's phenomenal.
Mhm.
I mean, do you think, and this was kind of what I kind of clicked on, and yes, there's about a week apart, but I found it really interesting that they were doing an event in mainland Europe a week after All In. It just seems really interesting to me because, again, yeah, fair enough, two different countries, but we know that European wrestling fans, they will like. It wasn't just English people in Wembley Stadium there in August. I can tell you that for nothing. So all of a sudden, it's then like, right, okay, so not everybody's got the disposable income to go to two massive wrestling events. So it's like, do we kind of hop over the channel and go and watch AEW in London, or do we get a train or whatever it is to get over to Berlin to watch WWE? Do you think, Robbie, that's something conscious that they've done, or do you think I'm looking too much into it?
I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't think WWE, bar the Tuesday War, really take notice of AEW. It's kind of the other way round. I just think they've just decided Germany, and that's the date. Personally, I mean, I could be wrong. It could be a whole tactic of, right, like you saying, people can't afford to go to both, so we'll take some of that crowd by doing it in another country in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, where do we think next? Because it's almost like, and to be fair, like I don't have a job like this, so it's not my job to work for like a big international company and kind of plot this global expansion. Do you know what I mean? But it seems to me that kind of every month, every 6 weeks, there's another big event announced. From a country they've either never been to before or that they've never been to at that scale. Where do you think's next? Like where do you think are the countries that they need to be targeting, or that you think they're going to need to target? And I'll start with David. Where do you think they're going to go?
I'd probably say somewhere in South America. Maybe it's Brazil, because the only time I think WWE's mentioned Brazil is when Pat, got his name, won the Intercontinental title there.
They should have an Intercontinental title tournament in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. How about you, Kev? Do you think where do you think WWE is going to land kind of throughout 24 and 25?
I mean, they definitely want more like Middle East influence in Asia, but again, because I mean, whenever they've done events in Australia, the crowd have really been up for it, and like Australasians, like New Zealand, there's a lot of like English, all like the English speaking places. Like, I know that there's a big demand for it in like India. Obviously, we're trying to get into it in Saudi Arabia, but it's going back to it as well with like obviously the between AEW and WWE. I know sometimes it be like basically a glorified house show, whereas AEW do house shows or don't do many, so every event seems significant, and I think that's why they've got one over on WWE with stuff like that, because maybe that Berlin will just be like a glorified house show, whereas All In will be. So, but yeah, that was just my point on that.
And how about you, Robbie? Where do you think they're going next?
Well, last week I think I read Paris for Backlash 2024. It's only being discussed at the minute, so nothing's been put in stone. But it makes sense. Or like France,
That makes a lot of sense.
Or Spain, somewhere like that.
I feel like we're probably going to see some event in Japan at some point as well. Like I know that NXT was it NXT Beast from the East or something years ago. It might not even be NXT, but I know Finn Balor won the NXT title on that show. But yeah, like I feel at some point there'll be some movement towards Japan, but definitely more shows in Europe. I think is a really good shout. And I think like Paris again, the amount of English fans that are going to hop over the channel just to go and watch WWE in Paris, like totally, like that would absolutely happen. But like I say, we'll keep an eye on that. I think the other part of it, and this will dive us really nicely into Wrestle Profit, is of course the announcement that John Cena is going to be wrestling his first match in Saudi Arabia for 5 years. And it was interesting because when he'd been announced, I was trying to remember if he had wrestled a match in Saudi Arabia before. I didn't know when the deal had come in and kind of what his commitments had been like. So yeah, a pretty stacked card. Again, WWE, they're kind of working on these like small cards, 5, 6, 7 matches, but trying to make sure that they deliver on all of them. AEW going the way of like loading the card with about like 11, 12 matches. And I think, I think both are working for them in different measures. Let's get into Wrestle Profit. I'm going to do a little jingle for it at some point, I think, because I think it deserves one. But for those who are keeping score, which I am, and it's unfortunate for me, we've done 2 events so far. So we did AEW Wrestle Dream, and we did it was Payback, I believe it was, WWE. So everybody except me is on a running total of 22. And I had a shocker, absolute shocker, at the last one. So I'm only on 18. But I feel that Crown Jewel is my event. I feel we're going to go for it. So we've got 6 matches announced. We've got space for a 5-pointer here. I couldn't think of a 5-pointer question. So when we get to it, perhaps we can kind of come up with one together. And then obviously I'll shoot a message over to Peter and see what his predictions are. So we'll start with the Women's World Championship match. So they've gone with kind of a 5-way Women's Championship match, which is, when you think really about the significance of that, like at first I was a bit like, oh, is this just kind of a bung all the women on the show kind of match? But then you think we're in Saudi Arabia, where when they started doing these events, women weren't allowed to be on them. They weren't allowed to attend them. So in that sense, pretty significant. We've got Rhea Ripley defending Women's World Heavyweight Championship against Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Nia Jax, and Raquel Rodriguez. I think all real kind of heavy hitters, all, a lot of power, a lot of strength in that match. Should be quite a bit of spectacle, I was going to say, not skeptical, quite a bit of spectacle. We'll start with Robbie. Who do you think's winning the Women's Championship match?
Rhea.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's just with this whole thing of she's being told off Adam Pearce to get her division in check. Mm-hmm. She hasn't really had a great run yet, so it's got to start sometime. But I just think they're going to keep it on it to at least Elimination Chamber.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like a title reign's not the best, but that's almost kind of through no fault of her own, because she's been so embedded in this Judgment Day storyline. It's like the leader of the Judgment Day and involved in, kind of the other storylines that they're weaving in there. It's almost like WWE haven't thought, oh, well, we need to give her something to sink her teeth into. Yeah. Because I feel like there's some great. I mean, to be fair, like some of the people in this match, like a Rhea Ripley Shayna Baszler match, I think would be absolutely awesome. There's plenty of opportunity on Raw and SmackDown and NXT for it to have some absolutely banging matches. So hopefully this is the start of it. We'll see how this match goes. But I'd love to see her get involved in some really good singles feuds in that build up to Elimination Chamber, because I think you're right. I don't think she'll be losing the title before then, or I wouldn't like her to anyway. I've gone with Rhea as well. I'd be really surprised if they take the title off her on Saturday. How about you, Kev? Which way are you going?
Yeah, Rhea Ripley. I can't see her losing.
Yeah, no worries. Are you the same, David? Are you thinking Rhea?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Ripley all the way.
Yeah, awesome. My wife will be absolutely gutted if Rhea Ripley doesn't win. I mean, I think she's awesome, but I think my wife is a bit obsessed with her. So there we go. We'll move on to the World Heavyweight Championship match: Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. Now, I've got a feeling I've gone for Seth, right? I have, but then I've been adamant that he's going to lose it for the last 2 or 3 months, and part of me is tempted to change it because I just feel like, is this the moment where they're going to trip me up, as it were? That it's like I've been expecting him to lose it, and then he doesn't lose it. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna kind of listen to what you guys think and then make a final decision in a minute. So David, what do you think? Do you think Seth's retaining, or do you think Drew McIntyre is walking out of Saudi Arabia with the World Heavyweight Championship?
I think Drew's winning it.
Yeah,
winning the title. Yeah, because they've just started to push him again, and I just think Seth needs some time off because I think he is a bit injured and things, and Drew just needs to start off a roller coaster going. So
yeah, and I think it's we'll come back to me. Like I say, I'm very on the. This is probably the one that I was really on the fence about. So Kev, what do you reckon?
I'm a bit up in the air. How the card is whether the Cody and Damian Priest match goes on. If it's before this match, I reckon Damian Priest will. Either it'll be a triple threat. It's like what Seth Rollins did at WrestleMania. I reckon McIntyre will win it, and then Damian Priest will cash in the title. But I'd say Drew for the match.
No worries.
That's my prediction on that.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking it's like. So I feel the same as you, David. That it's like they're just starting to build him up again. But then I felt like you could say the same for Nakamura, and I was so sure that Nakamura was going to win it, and then didn't. But yeah, we'll see what happens. What do you think, Robbie? Are we going to have a new champion?
I don't know. It's
a tough one, isn't it?
It is, because they're teasing a heel turn with Drew McIntyre for weeks and weeks and weeks. Well, since ever he started wearing that black leather jacket, and I just think if Rollins wins, that's the perfect chance to turn him heel. He's pissed off that he hasn't won, and he turns. But carrying on from what Kevin was saying about Priest, I would be happy for that match to be before Rhodes and Priest. Priest cash in, and then Cody Rhodes and Priest is a title match.
Yeah.
Probably long shot, but I wouldn't be annoyed at it. I don't know. I could flip a coin and be happy with whichever way it comes. Rollins, and then McIntyre heel turn.
That makes me think, because I'm trying to think about a 5-point now, and that's starting to get us thinking about what 5-point questions it could potentially be. So I think I am going to stick with Seth, because I think even if they are building Drew, there's a way that we want to potentially prolong the feud. I guess part of me thinks about Seth's kind of record in Saudi Arabia as well, like against the Fiend and this sort of thing. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with my original bet rather than moving things around, and I'm gonna go with Seth. Speaking of which, and we feel there's a potential that these two matches are gonna potentially kind of be rubbing off on each other. But we're up to Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest. So at the moment, non-title, there is a potential, it could be a long shot, but there is a potential that Damian Priest walks out of Saudi Arabia with the championship. But I think, at least for their match, I think with just where Cody is at the minute, and the fact that they're going to Crown Jewel, I think it's going to be Cody that walks out the winner of this one. What do you think, Robbie?
Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, with that face-to-face with Reigns, were they setting up WrestleMania? And if so, they need to get him on a hot streak quick.
Yeah.
and I think it could start with Priest.
What do you reckon, Kev?
I think just when anything like in Saudi Arabia looks strong over there as well, so it'll definitely be Cody.
Yeah. And do you agree with that, David? Are you thinking
Yeah.
Cody?
Cody, all the way.
Cool. And you guys will see, anyone who's watching will see that obviously we're leaving Peter's blank. I'll get in touch with him and he can and kind of put his in before the event on Saturday. So here's one that I think's quite interesting. So Rey Mysterio versus Logan Paul. So obviously, you know, Logan Paul's had a couple of kind of big matches in Saudi, including obviously his match with Roman Reigns, which was a year or two ago now. You know, for me, I don't see any reason why they can't have Logan Paul walk out with the United States title. I'd read a really interesting thing that said that, you know, if that was the case, obviously Roman's very much part-time at the moment on SmackDown. The Judgment Day kind of sort of jumping between both. So if Logan Paul was to kind of walk out with the United States title, that would leave Io Sky as the only full-time champion on the roster. But I do think there's something to be said. I like the idea of Logan Paul winning it, rubbing it in people's faces, being on social media, going to public events, taking the title with him. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. So I'm going Logan Paul. What do you think, David?
Logan Paul.
Yeah.
Just because it gets them out there. And going out there with the title, the people are, oh, where's that from? Oh, I'm WWE US champion.
Yeah.
It gets them into the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think, because, and you know what it is? I mean, we're talking about controversial opinions and stuff coming up. Like, I do not have a problem with Logan Paul and his role in WWE at the moment at all. Like, I feel he's got the athleticism to do what he does, which is great, because we've seen loads of celebrity wrestlers over the years not be able to kind of back up that side of it. But also, like, he's, you know, he knows he's a smarmy git. And so, like, if you're taking someone like Logan Paul and, you know, he's taken that title away, you know, obviously old school wrestling fans are going to hate it. His fans are going to love it. You know, he goes to all these weird and wonderful events. You know, he's a big time YouTube celebrity. Capitalize on it. Why not? You know, and I think Rey Mysterio's had enough of a career that I don't think that doesn't impact him negatively from losing to Logan Paul. What do you think, Kev? Do you think Rey Mysterio's retaining, or do you agree with us that Logan Paul's going to walk out with it?
Yeah, I can imagine as prime things on the title labels.
You can have a custom belt. You can have a custom belt with the prime. You see, it's meant to happen.
It'll have the very limited edition fucking US title prime and stuff. God.
Yeah,
it's in the stars to happen.
Oh man, but you know what it is though. But then, like, it's the fact that, like, yeah, like that's a horrible thing to happen, and that's why it should happen. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like the old school wrestling fan in me gets really angry. So then it's like, yeah, that's the thing to do, because that's what's gonna, you know, people are gonna want to pay to see him get beat. The people, you know, his fans are gonna, you know, there's that crossover. For me, it's win-win. I mean, I don't know if you feel any different, Robbie.
Nah, Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
He gets the right reaction. People get pissed off when he's on screen, and that's the whole point of a heel. Maybe he will be on WTV more. Maybe that was part of the deal, right? You want a title, you've got to be on the show. Doesn't mean he has to wrestle every week. But again, what you're saying about the branding, it's all there. Like, the money's
the title on Logan Paul, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we'll move on to, obviously, the match that we were talking about a little bit earlier on. Announced that John Cena is going one-on-one with Solo Sikoa, which I'm really interested to see. I think it's a big match for Solo. You know, I think it's always really interesting who they put Cena in the ring with at this point. And especially, like I say, it's been a really nice run that Cena's had during the writer's strikes and stuff. It's been nice to see him around and kind of get involved in storylines rather than it just being kind of a one-shot appearance. Yeah, again, this is one I went back and forth on, but I'm landing on Solo. simply because I think that John Cena, I don't think he needs the win. There's something to be said that perhaps the Saudi fans would enjoy watching John Cena win. But I think for me, the dissolution of the bloodline in a few months' time, talking about us needing to build up Cody, I think we need to build up Solo as well. And I think a win against John Cena does that very nicely. And I think it would be a big moment in his career as well. What do you think, Robbie? Would you agree with that, or do you think that Cena's taking this one home?
I agree they need to build Solo up. I think Cena's going to win for the simple fact he referenced his last singles win. Had he not referenced that, then I would have went Solo. But I think Cena is going to walk up with this one.
Okay, what do you reckon, Kev?
I'd like to see. I think it's going to. It's not a fucking squash match. As long as it's actually, I think no. I think the Saudi crowd want to see John Cena win, with him being like, with his like celebrity status and stuff. But good match, and I hope it's not just like a 5-minute squash. I hope like there's some offense and defense because Sikora's really put on a good show for the crowd.
And you know what it is? It's like Cena's really good as well. And I know that's probably like an unpopular opinion from a lot of people, but we've seen in the past, like with the right opponents, John Cena can have phenomenal matches. And I just feel like it's one to watch. I've just got a feeling, given the time, like you say, this could be a really, really good match. What do you reckon, David? Do you think Solo's taking it, or do you agree with the guys that it's Cena?
I agree with the guys. Cena's going to win it.
Okay.
For the reason that it's going to probably be his last match in Saudi. I can imagine he'll not be there again wrestling. And give the Saudi fans what they want.
Cool.
Because they're the ones that pay the money.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the main event, Roman Reigns versus LA Knight. Now, for me, a lot of people might think it's a foregone conclusion that it's Roman for a lot of reasons, but it is interesting the timing of LA Knight coming in. Obviously is hot shot into the top of the card, all this kind of stuff. So it is a big match. I think it is going to be really interesting to see how it goes. I personally do think it's going to be Roman. I don't think they're taking the title off him yet. I think there's still more story to tell. I know, Robbie, you've got some strong thoughts about Roman Reigns and his title defenses this year. Do you think this is his last one?
Unfortunately, no. It's not going to be.
Might be his last this year.
Yeah. Well, if the rumors are true, yeah. It's not going to be a clean win because I feel they need to protect LA Knight. And the way they positioned LA Knight at the minute, I mean, that little stunt on SmackDown he pulled, the balls on him to just come out in the middle of Roman Reigns' entrance, not even look at him. LA Knight is getting me feeling like a wrestling fan when I was younger again. Like I believe in him. And when he come out, I was just like, that's my guy at the minute. Like, unfortunately, he's not going to beat Roman Reigns.
Okay. And you know what it is? It's like hopefully they do it in the right way. Because if you think like Roman's title reign began in like 2020, LA Knight wasn't even, you know what I mean? Like I don't know if he was in NXT at that time, if he was still in Impact or where he was. But the fact that throughout this title reign, we've seen this rise of LA Knight to the point where he's now, I think the Saudi shows are a big deal for WWE, so they obviously trust him to take this ball and run with it. So this might be his test. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the way I see it. Like if they put on a hell of a main event, then I think it's good news for LA Knight over the coming months. What do you think, Kev? Who do you think's winning the main event? Well, we presume it's the main event. I don't think anything else would be.
Win, but he'll not win the title. Like, it'll be disqualification or
Okay.
What the stipulation is, but I think he's going to win, but it'll be Reigns will have the title on the top of the balcony, and like the crowd will be off with the titles, and then like LA Knight will get the moral victory, and then it'll be. But I think he'll win. He'll just not win the title.
I was just thinking about there was one of I don't know if it was the last event in Saudi or the one before where like fans were like chatting for LA Knight at the press conference and this that and the other. So it just makes you think again about how far he's come, which is just really nice to see. I mean, what do you think, David? I mean, Kev's thrown a bit of an interesting thought in there that LA Knight might win, albeit not win the title. Where do you think it's going to go?
That's exactly what I've got written down. LA Knight by disqualification.
Okay.
But another swerve ball that could throw in would be Damian Priest come out and try to cash in the Money in the Bank, and then Roman pins Damian.
Yeah.
Keeps his title, and LA Knight doesn't lose anything.
Protects LA.
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose that keeps LA Knight in the title run still then.
Yeah.
I mean, do we think, obviously, because we're thinking about like a 5-pointer question, like, and I know this was the question for them for the last WWE event as well. Do we think it is about, is Damian Priest cashing in? Is that a good 5-pointer, or does anyone else have any other questions they think might be better?
I think with him having a match on the card, the likelihood is lower. But I don't know.
But I think he had one last time, didn't he? Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah, tell you what, let's pop it in. Is Damian Priest cashing in? So obviously we've had a few different scenarios there of ways that he might or might not potentially cash in. You know, I mean, yeah. Let's start, because obviously you come up with that curveball for us. Do you think, David? Do you think this is his? Do you think that he will be cashing in?
No, you know I've thought of it. No, I still think it's too soon. So
I agree. As it happens, I don't think we'll see him cashing in. But then, you know, my record, that probably means that he will. So what do we think, Kev? Do you think Priest is cashing in?
I do.
You do.
So it depends, because he'll get kicked out of Judgment Day. Because I know with Rhea Ripley and that being the leader now, and I think they need someone out, and I think that'd be an excuse to get to kick him out. So yeah, I think he's gonna.
And how about you, Robbie? What do you think?
No, even though all the suggestions we've had are quite good and what I would like to see, I just don't see it. I think once he's lost the tag titles, then he might, because then he'll have something to prove. But if he was to cash in now and fail, he's still a tag team champion in the Judgment Day.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
I think it depends on the understanding of Money in the Bank. The Saudi Arabian audience, will they understand what cashing in is? Because I know, for the spectacle of WWE, but I mean, no disrespect, mightn't understand what it's about, so they mightn't get a big pop of it. Do you know what I mean? Because that's only my concern why they mightn't do it.
Yeah. But I think it should be interesting. Obviously, Crown Jewel will be this Saturday. Here in the UK, we'll be able to watch it early evening. So yeah, obviously by our next episode of Mark Side of the Ring, we'll be able to come back and see how well or how badly we've done with our predictions. Obviously, if you want to play along, absolutely get in touch with us, and we can help with that as well. Don't forget, of course, that the winner, and I have said this a couple of times, but the winner, and it'll be around WrestleMania time, there is a prize for the winner, which is why I'm so sad I'm losing, because the prize I have in mind is fantastic. So bear that in mind. Okay, so in just a little bit, we're going to be kind of hand it over to Robbie to talk a little bit about controversial wrestling opinions from ourselves and the Nerdy Up North community. But first, and I know this is Kev particularly, this is your favorite moment of the show, isn't it? When we do this. We've talked about Roman Reigns. We know where he's going to be this Saturday. He's going to be facing LA Knight in Saudi Arabia. You know, there'll be cameras on him galore, and that's going to be great. However, We don't always know where he is. I'd read 5 title defenses this year.
Yeah.
So he's had some tag team matches and stuff, but his appearances in WWE have been sporadic. So I'd sent my sources out, and we ask ourselves every week, where is Roman Reigns? Where is he? Where is Roman Reigns?
Not doing his job.
Now, and you know what it is? So, was it Kev? Did you send me? There were AI images of where Roman Reigns was, and he was at Disney World and stuff. I should have shared them because they were so funny. It was like him with like Mickey Mouse and stuff, and I was like, "But you know what it is? It's AI. It's artificial intelligence. That's the danger of AI. They're not real images like the ones that my sources have been able to nab." Now, I'm starting to understand a little bit about Robbie's anger, really, because part of the problem is that I don't think Roman has his eye fully on the ball, as it were, in terms of WWE. His eyes are elsewhere. And this was the first thing that I noticed here. So this was actually days ago that Roman Reigns has been appearing on Strictly Come Dancing. He was in the Halloween special, as you can see there. Now, he was very good. His Paso Doble was fantastic. However, he's meant to be our champion. Although at the same time, it's probably a good warm up for his match with LA Knight. You know what I mean? Obviously, dancing. It's hard. Do you know what I mean? It's tough. Also, let's have a look at our next one here. People might have seen that Frasier has been rebooted on Paramount. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Frasier, actually, it's top 3. Kelsey Grammer's the only original cast member left, but Roman Reigns has filled the void that Niles has left behind. And as you can see, they're quite the comedy duo. So it is behind a paywall. But if you get on Paramount Plus, Kelsey Grammer and Roman Reigns in the reboot of Frasier. And then because it's Halloween tomorrow, now this might make you feel a little bit kinder towards him, Robbie, because, yes, he's been thinking about his acting career, he's thinking about his dancing career, all this kind of stuff. But he has been thinking about us too. He has been thinking about defending us from the likes of Freddy Krueger. And, this was taken, pretty intense. Pretty intense. I mean, I told my source not to get that close again when there's fire because I don't have the insurance to cover it. But yeah, so just more. We're starting to get a really good understanding of where Roman Reigns is. And this happens week after week. Anytime that we don't see Roman, that we don't know where he is, which is a lot of the time, my sources will continue to get in touch and send me photographs. If you know where Roman Reigns is, so obviously Kev very kindly sent me those images of Roman in Disneyland. If anyone knows where Roman is and would like your pictures to appear on the show, get in touch. Drop us a message on the Mark Side of the Ring Facebook group, or alternatively email marksidepod@gmail.com. Okay, so now that's out of the way. And we're looking forward to this because I was having to read through them and I added a few of mine as well. Controversial wrestling opinions, because we've all got them. And I think it's a really fun topic that we can get stuck into. So Robbie kind of went to, just for context for anyone who maybe isn't a member of the group, there's a fantastic Facebook community, Nerdy Up North. To be fair, I've made some really good friends on Nerdy Up North. I've only been a member for 2 or 3 months, so it's really, really nice to to join and just get chatting with people. There's no judgment at all for whatever your kind of your nerdy passions are. But Robbie went to the trouble of saying, right, what's your controversial wrestling opinion? And we'll talk about them on the show. So I'm going to hand over to you, Robbie, to kind of share some of these. And yeah, we'll just see what we think, see if we agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like you said, I got these from Nerdy Up North group. So the first one is from Carl Lee. CM Punk is actually good. Can be controversial because people are not his biggest fan lately. I think he's a brilliant wrestler.
I guess that's it. Are people mixing up kind of good and because for me there's no disputing that CM Punk is a great wrestler. That's how he's got to where he has. Sure, he's a bit older and he was maybe a bit more injury prone.
Well, he can't act. What
were we going to say, Kev?
Have you saw the horror film? He said he can't act, so he can wrestle, but he can't act.
Is he not in Heels as well? I haven't seen that, but is he not in Heels?
No,
that wrestling drama.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the same horror film, and he was sat on a porch pretending to drink whiskey, and I'm like, it's just wrong. After I watched it, I was like, yeah, CM Punk's That's what I said.
But no, yeah, I don't think that's massively controversial. Like, because I think he is a good wrestler. For me, I like CM Punk, and I think, to be fair, I mean, I don't know how you felt, David. Like, I feel like in Wembley, at least in our section, wasn't captured very well. I feel on pay-per-view, but I feel like we were probably the only two people cheering for CM Punk against Samoa Joe. Like, I really do.
I felt like we were going to get lynched by everybody else. But...
And I like Samoa Joe. I've got a lot of time for Samoa Joe. I was really looking forward to the match. And I was quite, because I thought Punk would get a decent reception at Wembley, and it sounds like he did when you watch it on TV. And I'm not accusing them of piping in or anything. I think it must have just been wherever the mics were picking up. But certainly our section hated him, absolutely hated him. And I know my wife Kelly, is not a fan of CM Punk at all. But yeah, I mean, for me, he makes wrestling interesting as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't be fearing for our lives, like poor Tony, but otherwise, you know, I think he's a good wrestler. But so yeah, I'm sure some people would find that controversial. But who was that? Was that Carl? Did you say
Carl Lee? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we agree with you, Carl. We think CM Punk's a good guy, a good wrestler. We don't know about good guy because we don't know him, but he's a good wrestler.
So another one got from Shane Morio. I think I've said it right. It was Brett's fault, not Goldberg's.
Oh. So I saw David's eyebrows raise instantly. I'm coming to you. How do you feel about that?
Goldberg threw the kick. So I'd go. That's a hard one.
It is. I feel like that's one that deserves me to go back and watch the match again, because I think it's interesting. I think the thing that I take away from it, that, you know, Brett, and again, without judgment, Brett's obviously very bitter about that. Like, he still talks about it to this day, which is tough. But I think Goldberg gets a lot of shit because he can be quite sloppy. Or we've seen that he can be sloppy, but we're not watching Goldberg for 5-star Dean Malenko-esque match. Do you know what I mean? We're watching it because of the intensity and the power.
That was his style of wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. And he's very good at it, and he's made a lot of money out of doing it as well. So for me, and this is going to sound like a cop out, I need to reserve judgment. I think I need to go back and watch the match again. You know, before I side with such a controversial opinion. How about you, Kev?
Again, it's did Brett put, like, obviously Goldberg through the kick? Was Brett comfortable enough to put him in that position for that move? Because when apparently Brett said, "Oh, don't hurt me, Bill," and that was the only advice he gave him to do it. He said, "Don't hurt me."
I would say that if Bill Goldberg was going to kick me.
But, like,
I think that's a fair comment.
It didn't give him any, like, they didn't practice the moves. You said it's
fair.
With Brett's a technical genius. Anyone look good? So maybe, I know he was old at the time in WCW, but he could have still made that a 5-star match. So I'd have to watch it again as well to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen the match, but I would just assume it was Brett's fault.
I think you're just trying to rile Peter up while he's not here. You're not a massive Brett fan, though, are you?
Nah, I just don't. I still find him interesting in the fact that after all these years, he's still going on about it. Like, move on. I mean, Goldberg's fucking retired now. Come on.
I heard Goldberg was going to be doing some kind of retirement tour, but that just sort of fizzled out, didn't it?
Well, the rumor was he would be turning up at All In.
Yeah. We might see him at some point.
Do you look at about Bret Hart? Invite every single one's got lots of Bret Hart portraits on the walls and stuff. Like, even his bathroom, it's like loads of, like, Bret Hart pictures everywhere of him, and he's like wrestling.
Yeah, so it's definitely Bret's fault.
I don't know if I like the idea of, like, having a shit and seeing a picture of myself Like that would be really off-putting. But I mean, he might close his eyes. I don't know. Who knows? Right, let's move on because I feel like this is going down a road I hadn't expected.
So the next one, it caught me by surprise, but then I thought, what if? It's from Stephen Dawson. Monday Night Wars was a cross promotion.
So this is his belief that it was kind of a cross, like a joint endeavor.
The only thing that makes me think possibly is the fact WWE come in and bought it
for the price that they did,
instead of just letting it die.
It's an interesting one. I mean, what do you think, Kev? Do you think there's any merit to that?
I don't know, because I think bought it for $3 million. Because basically, they absolutely gutted WCW. There was nothing left apart from the ring. The library, that's all that was left of it. So that I think it's just Vince's own ego. Like, yeah, I'm buying the competition. I've buying them. So that was. I think it's just. I think it's Vince being Vince, like being the conqueror, like placing his flag on the hill, saying, "I've done it. How dare you defy me?" So. That's my opinion anyway.
I guess it's kind of if we say for a minute it was, is it from the very beginning? Where does it begin? Is there a point where, like, you know, perhaps when Bischoff leaves and Russo comes in, is that the point where it's like, right, okay, let's work together, let's weave a narrative? Because I know some people, you know, have kind of maybe half joked over the years that WWE sent Russo in to like. To kind of sink the competition and all this kind of stuff, but it could just as easily have been like, oh well, tell you what, you go in and then we'll engineer this together.
10% of Russo's ideas were good, but like the night was filtered by WWE. Other WWE writers who were like, no. And then when he went to WCW, they just gave him free reign and said, "Oh, you can do whatever you want." So I think that was why it didn't really work out in WCW.
Yeah,
but
and 60% of his ideas involved a pole.
Was it Viagra on a pole and Judy Bagwell on a pole and stuff?
Judy Bagwell on a forklift, Viagra on a pole. That's who, for the love of wrestling, should get on. They should get Judy Bagwell one year.
Oh, she passed away.
Oh, did she?
I
feel bad about talking about her now. That would have been a fantastic. In fact, I'm googling this but no, I think that that's an opportunity missed, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, what do we think to it? Because it's one of those things. It's like, you know, it's like when people say that. It's like when people say that Montreal was like a two-sided thing. You know, again, quite a controversial opinion that some people have. Who said that? Is it?
That was from Craig Boyle. Montreal Screwjob was a work.
Quite a common one that I've heard, but I think it's controversial enough that, like, you know, it's definitely worth merit. Like, these are things that come up. It's almost this idea that, like, wrestling's such a dramatic thing, isn't it? It's, you know, even like sometimes the behind the scenes stuff is more interesting than what they're putting out on TV. Have any of you ever had any thoughts that the Montreal Screwjob could be a work?
Yeah.
No.
It's, I mean, obviously, he didn't want Brett taking the WWF title to CW. Basically, what Mick Flair did. He didn't want him doing what he'd already done. The big gold title wrestler. I mean, all he could have done was announce a new title, like what he did when he actually did the title when they got rid of the Winged Eagle. That's all he could have done. It would have been easy to do that. I don't understand why it was all a big, like, when he didn't want to drop the title and then take the title to WCW. The title's a prop at the end of the day. You should have just changed the design. And that's why I'm thinking that because of that, it just seemed like loads of drama. But
I mean, Brett should have just dropped the title.
yeah,
At the end of the day, his bosses told him to do something. Do
Yeah.
it. And I watched the Dark Side of the Ring episode of that, and to me, it sounds like Bret Hart blew it all out of proportion. Not convinced McMahon out for what? Asking you to do your job. Like, oh,
Wrestling with Shadows is worth a watch as well.
that's
If anyone's-
it's
that's
like
a
you
hell of a
being at
watch.
work and being asked to do something and going nah, and then knocking your boss out for being told to do my job. You know, it makes no sense. But Brett screwed Brett, and I stand by that, and I'll take that to my grave.
I feel that Brett screwed Brett's there. It's a tongue twister this time of night. Brett screwed Brett needs to be a topic, I think, in and of itself, because I know you're a massive Bret Hart fan, aren't you, David? Or is it Kev?
No.
Is it you,
I'm
Kev,
not.
who's the Bret Hart fan?
I'm a Brett fan, but again, I was always
Yeah.
when he was WWF. It brought me up when he went to WCW.
But then we know, obviously, Peter's a massive Bret Hart fan as well. And obviously, he's not having the opportunity to speak for himself tonight. So I think Bret
I'll
versus
be
Bret needs to
killing
be a
him.
topic. It will be. In fact, I need to have a bit of a look in the Facebook. RCC, we've got some comments from Paul Phoenix Sutton, but we don't have any from Peter. But I'll read Paul's while we're here. CM Punk was good, but he was a better mic guy than a wrestler.
Yeah.
Goldberg could be sloppy, but even the best make mistakes and people get hurt. You don't hear Big E moaning or Becky Lynch slagging off Nia Jax, even though Jax is far sloppier than Bill. Time for Brett to stop whining about it. David Arquette is champion. Tell me Russo was a genius. I dare you. So, yeah, I think, but either way, I think Peter, I think he's done very well. I think he'll catch up, he'll find it, and then he'll be like, right, I want me say on Brett.
We should give
So I
him
think that needs to be Brett Screws Brett needs to be a topic for a future episode.
we should give him 10-15 minutes on next episode to give his opinions on these. Just let him go for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. What else have we got?
So we've got one from our own Kev.
Ah.
War Games is stupid. There's no need for 2 rings.
That I had the same reaction when I read it the first time. Like, for some reason, like, I just like the idea that it just amuses me that you called it stupid. I'd like, I want, like, so yeah. I'm gonna open the floor to you to discuss this one.
Why 2 rings? Just have a. Or just Cage. There's no need for 2 fucking rings. It's just. It just splits it in half. It's like, what's the fucking point?
I feel like if anyone knows,
I like the idea of the.
Go on.
The idea of this, I just fucking rings. It's like.
But they've got to have that shot of each team in each ring. They've
Yeah,
got to have
so-
that shot.
Look, just that.
I mean, it is. What does wind me up was the fact the other matches can't use the other ring.
Exactly. It just makes it look ridiculous. And I remember when it was War Games and they couldn't move the rings, so the NXT for the fucking rings, like they just shot in like in one ring. And I was like, it's just ridiculous. That's what.
well, I love it. So we've done 7 episodes of this podcast, and you've been in 6 of them, right? And you're quite an insightful, quite a calm guy. And this is the most animated I've ever seen you about anything. And that makes me really happy. Hey,
Just
I think-
just grinds me ears.
I'd love to know kind of like who it'll be out there somewhere. I'll have to do some research, but like who was it? Dusty who maybe suggested
Dusty.
2 rings? Was it
Yeah.
Dusty? Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like, you know what I mean. Like, I'd be really interested to know how that came about and all this kind of stuff. But I just love the fact that it just makes you so angry.
I
But it's
love,
coming up. It's coming up.
I love the 2-ring War Games. The WCW and NWA ones much superior to WWE's, and the Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance.
Mm.
You've ever seen that match? that is just absolutely superb.
Yeah.
And they needed the 2 rings to get the 10 men in, and honestly, fantastic. But I am an old school WCW fan, so.
Has he convinced you, Robbie? Like, are you anti-war games now?
No, I still like the War Games. I just don't understand why the other matches can't use that second ring.
Well, I feel it'd be more creative. I've often thought that, like, you know, if I was a wrestler, although maybe they were told they couldn't, but I feel like it would be more creative to kind of make use of both rings, wouldn't it? But
yeah,
maybe they're told they can't, to kind of not diminish from War Games.
I think in WCW they used to alternate the rings. So
I think
before the War Games match, they went and each did a separate ring. So.
I just can't stop thinking of William Regal when he goes, War Games! And he can't do it this year because, don't forget, Tony Khan said he couldn't be on TV this year. But then, as of next year, we're fair game for the return of William Regal's War Games. And I think that he should announce it every year.
Yeah.
I used to love it. Like,
I'll wait and see what Nick Aldis sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever there was a big ruckus, you think it's all kicking off, and music, you're like, yes, he's gonna come. He's gonna say it.
He's gonna do it. Because Blood and Guts just isn't the same. It's not the same. But never mind. What else? We've got time for some more, haven't we? What else have we got?
So this one's from David. Hogan and Savage weren't all that. DiBiase should have been a multi-time WWE champion. Brett shouldn't have been higher than an IC title, and Vader should have been in the Hall of Fame while still alive.
Hard agree with Vader. I think Vader should have been in like well before he was, and I think that if he'd been alive, I think Mick Foley could have inducted him, and I think that would have been amazing. Totally agree with DiBiase as well. He should be like a multi-time, and not that he needed it, absolutely not, but I think that he should have been. Like, so I totally agree with both of them at the very least.
I agree with it all, especially the Bret Hart bit.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Savage was good. He got. I think he didn't get the good. Savage. I think he was the class act. Apart from his.
Yeah, I think
his wife, but apart from that.
I think Savage is my only question mark in those. I think, and like I've got a soft spot for like the character of Hulk Hogan, but you know, absolutely, I think he was, you know, overrated and all of that stuff that I think that we all say now. But like I think I shared it in the group the other a few days ago. One of my favorite wrestling moments of all time is when he turns up in that kind of random place that the Dungeon of Doom live, and he's like. He's like, where am I? I've never been here before. Because, of course, that's what I do. If I've been somewhere new, I make sure I let everyone know that I've never been there before. And then, just like, and it's like, even now, and I must have seen it 100 times, but every time I watch it, I like burst out laughing as if it's the first time I watched it, where he gets the water and he goes, it's not hot! Because it's like, well, what did you expect?
I mean,
like, do you just walk around expecting water to be hot? Like, I don't. If anything, it's the other way. Like, I mean, but anyway,
it's worse acting than Sid Vicious when he finds a flattened car.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot about that. That's fantastic.
There are no Hulkamaniacs here.
Seek that out. Anyone who's not seen it, Sid Vicious in the car is phenomenal. That's phenomenal. What else have we got? What are the controversial?
So I've got one from you,
yeah,
which I agree with, which is Kevin Owens should be the big heel champ WWE is built around. I'm fully in agreement with that. Yeah. He's a better heel than a babyface, in my opinion. He's a good babyface, but I just prefer him as a heel.
So for me, like obviously his Ring of Honor stuff was amazing, but also like the Kevin Owens in NXT. The whole with Sami Zayn, Finn, all that feud, and when he first came into WWE, like amazing. And I feel like you could easily the kind of stuff that they're doing with Roman now, I don't think you'd even need a stable, but just almost like a Brock Lesnar-esque kind of presence to him, where he's just like holds the championship for however long he wants, has amazing matches, beats the shit out of everybody. Yeah, I think he'd be absolutely phenomenal. At the same time, he's got a lot of likable qualities as well, so I see why they keep him as a babyface. But for me, you know, you could play the babyface heel game with all kinds of wrestlers, but for me, Kevin Owens is just a phenomenal heel, and I feel that he'd be an amazing world champion. I know he's had the Universal title, but I'd like to see him get a proper run at it in the future.
I mean, would he be booed as a heel?
Yeah,
that's the problem, you see, isn't it? Because unless you're Christian Cage and you're ripping on people's dead dads, you don't stand much of a chance these days. I think that's it. He's, and this is my problem. I do this that, like, you know, if someone's like such a good heel, like, I end up just really liking them because I like a bad guy. Do you know what I mean? But then the thing is, like, that almost makes someone like The Miz like the ultimate great bad guy because people boo him. Do you know what I mean? Because he doesn't care about being cool. He just does what he just does what he wants.
I think we always do like really good French Canadian heels. Like the Rougeau brothers, like they're like theme song All American Boys. Like some of the verse would mug you off in French. They'd sing about how much they loved America, but then they'd sing a bit in French about how like America sucked and that. And like bros, like he wanted to become the Mountie and stuff, but I don't know, like French Canadians are.
I mean, to be fair, like Owens could even do I think even kind of cutting a promo in a foreign language is enough to get a WWE crowd to boo you. So I think even if he lent into his French Canadian roots a bit as well, I think that'd be really cool. But I mean, to be fair, he's had a great run in WWE, but I feel like, and through no fault of his own, I feel like it could have been more. I feel like he could really. I feel like if they kind of let him go, I think he could be something. Like one of the all-time great heel champions.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah,
completely agree with that.
You have time for more?
Yeah, let's do one more because I remember we're going to do For the Love of Wrestling stuff too. So we'll go with one more.
So this one's from Jake Burden Stockwell, from again Nerdy Up North. Guys who win all the time, for example, Hogan, Flair, Bruno, The Rock, Cena, and Reigns, are terrible to watch and toxic to have on the roster.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess what he's talking about there are, for the most part, the hand-picked guys, aren't they? Obviously some of them are organic, that kind of rise through, but a lot of them are the guys that Vince wanted, that the office wanted. I mean, do we have any thoughts on that? Does anybody think that agree with that? That those kinds of presences on the roster can have that risk of being toxic? Oh, you're on mute.
Fucking cats. It's always when I start this, they seem to fucking get a life of their own.
Yeah.
With that, I'll agree. Hogan. I mean, it's been proven he was toxic. Again, I'm still not a fan of him. Flair, from what I can gather from stories, he wasn't. He was quite generous, like we were talking last week about what he'd done for Sting. And I thought, watching clips of Bruno Sammartino, I think he's awful as a wrestler. Too stiff. It's too stiff for my liking, and he doesn't convince me he knows what he's doing.
So if we're talking controversial, that's one right there, isn't it? That's an interesting one. But you know what it is? It's funny because I think even and this isn't me saying that someone like Stone Cold was toxic, but even he got very kind of paranoid about his spot on the roster and losing that when he was injured, and the kind of environment that likely created in the locker room. Even CM Punk more recently, do you know what I mean? That they've had to essentially create a whole other show, to keep him away from certain people. And again, depending on who you speak to. Depends who people think is responsible for that. So, maybe there is an argument that, you get these big names, these big personalities who want to be top dog. And, you know, it's going to cause, you know, it's going to ruffle some feathers. It's going to cause a bit of toxicity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Definitely.
the way the Ultimate Warrior went, like he was supposed to be the next Hogan, and he just because of his ego, I just got the better of him. But like what you said before, to be at the top, you've got to be that kind of person. But I think it's not like that. I mean, I absolutely thought Undertaker's career, even American Badass, I can tolerate it. But all through Taker's career, he's been. So I think but he's always been like the head of the locker. He was always like the judge, and he always made sure everyone was tread fairly if there was anyone kicking out. Like I know when Shawn Michaels was going to drop the belt, that Stone Cold and Taker stood behind, like with his fists out to make sure that he did. Like that was like Undertaker threatening him to say, like, "You will drop that. You're dropping that title to Stone Cold tonight." So I think Taker's
taping his fist up.
Yeah, I think like the person that's not on that list, because he's definitely the person who I'd say go.
So, I mean, again, I imagine we've got quite a few more on that list for another time, do we? Yeah. So we'll definitely come back to these. We also asked about kind of wrestling questions to be posed to us as well. One of them I particularly liked, which I'm not going to spoil for people who haven't seen it, but I'm planning a very long and meticulous answer, which may involve a PowerPoint. So we'll get to that another time. But you know, just before we go, just a little bit of a quick mention for the next two guests that have been announced for the Love of Wrestling. It's in Manchester next year. So there were 8 guests announced a couple of weeks ago, really bumper packs, including Sting in his Wolfpack face paint, Trish Stratus, Jake Hager, Shelton Benjamin, many more. Tonight they've announced an additional 2. So just before we went live, they also had a Facebook Live for the Love of Wrestling and announced that CJ Perry, also known in WWE as Lana, and Sean Waltman, X-Pac, 6-Pack, 1, 2, 3 Kid, will be at the convention next year. I think Sean Waltman particularly is a hell of a get. I think if he, particularly for me, like going to his panel, I think would be really, really interesting and kind of hearing what he has to say.
I mean, the stories he must have of back in the day and drinking with the lads, because we all know he liked to drink. I want to know more detail about the whole thing of switching from WCW to WWE. Like, what really happened there? Was it a case of Bischoff did say that he just wasn't good enough, and then he went and proved him wrong in WWE? Because he flip-flopped, didn't he? He was in WWE 1 minute, then WCW, part of the NWO, and then he turns up on Raw, something like the next day after he got released, and then he's part of DX.
Yeah.
And then he went to WCW, and then he come back as X-Pac.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting to hear from him. And I think because as well, he obviously had this run, and I remember like when I was watching wrestling and he was a heel, I hated X-Pac, which is a compliment. Do you know what I mean? Like, because like I look back now. Yeah, like I hated the guy. Like, and it wasn't necessarily I can't even put my finger on what it was, but I just, you know, I think it was during his feud with Kane. That's what I kind of remember, his feud with Kane and him kind of stealing Tori away and this, that, and the other. Triple H and the McMahon Helmsley alliance running strong at that point. And yeah, I just thought, what a dick. So like, but I think that he would take that and be like, thanks, man. Like, because that's what he wanted. And, you know, I think my thing from reading the comments and reading reactions is people seem to be really happy because they say what a nice guy he is when they've met him. You know, they say what a nice guy he is. You know, he's had some tough times, but he seems to come through the end of them. I've often wondered if we would see him turn up for like a Royal Rumble appearance or some sporadic appearance in AEW or something like that. I feel it's not the last time we've seen him on a wrestling show, put it that way. I feel like he'll not necessarily like a full-time comeback, but I do think that we'll see him again at some point.
Yeah.
The best European champion. Like when the European Championship was about best European champion. So I think he's got that title for me. Dan.
I liked Al Snow, where his entrance music changed every week to represent a different country of Europe. I enjoyed that title reign.
Used to always say it was from a different capital city in Europe, so it was from Finland one week, then like Helsinki and stuff.
That's how you do
They
it.
need to bring that title back.
Yeah, it would be a good title.
Well, I would. Yeah, I wondered a few years ago if they would, but it never transpired. Like when NXT UK was kind of taking off, and then they were talking about making it NXT Europe, and I thought, would they bring it back then and kind of make it the main title? But it wasn't to be. But then obviously our other guests, as we say, Mrs. Rusev, Mrs. Miro, CJ Perry, and I'd said to you, Robbie, I think I think her line will be probably out the door. I think she is obviously like really popular, and obviously it's good to see her turning up in AEW, but not just instantly kind of locking in alongside Miro. That we've got a bit of a story for her and a bit of a plan, and there's going to be building to that, which is nice, rather than just, oh well, you have seen this before, so there you go.
It's nice to see AEW actually commit to a storyline.
Oh,
controversial opinion.
Well,
but yeah. So I mean, in terms of, I know me and Robbie have said that we're intending to go. Like, what are your thoughts, Kev? Do either of those announcements, do they sway you in terms of going to the convention, or were you thinking of going anyway, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking that anyway. I mean, I'd love to meet X-Pac. That like meeting a member of DX. I mean, conversation. I preferred the second incantation of DX, where it was Triple H, Outlaws, and X-Pac in China. That was my favorite. So it would be really good to see that. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about getting tickets. Like everyone who's been announced is. I'd love to go. I mean, to meet Sting, that would just be class. To be figured to get signed as well, that would just be amazing. Yeah, I really want.
How about you, Zara? Do you thinking you'll try and get along?
I'm not sure yet. Maybe a couple more names.
Yeah, and it's funny because someone had said, I think I'd said this before we would hit record, that someone on the Facebook page for the Love of Wrestling had said, because of the announcement of Sean Waltman, oh well, that's me not going, and the organisers were like, we're not even halfway through. Like, we've still got, like, they've announced 10 people. Like, I think usually they have about like 25, 30 people. So there's still plenty of names to announce, and plenty of other stuff as well. There'll be panels, like stalls, all sorts of stuff. So I think we've been working on trying to get someone from the Love of Wrestling to come on and just have a bit of a chat with us about just about wrestling in general, really. But I'm sure we'll touch on the show. So that would be cool. And
Like I was saying before, I'm a big WCW fan, so I'd like to see a few more wrestlers from WCW. Maybe Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson was there.
Well, he's a free agent now, I've heard.
Exactly, yeah.
So, possibly more likely than ever.
Best tag team wrestler ever. There's my controversial opinion.
But no, I think that'll do it for another episode of Mark's Side of the Ring. Obviously, we'll be back after Crown Jewel to kind of sort of talk about the show, see how well we did in the predictions, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of other kind of wrestling related news thrown up over the coming week. So until then, I've been Mike Norris, and we'll all see you next week. Cheers.
See you. Thank you.
Yeah.